Alright, time to make some enemies. Today is the day that I shall be ranking every mainline Sonic game. This guy's been around for at least like 3 years, so he's had a lot of games in the past. And you know, some of them were pretty good, others were not as good. But that's what makes it so interesting. I feel like you could really understand the character of someone by looking at their Sonic ranking list. Let's take Mario list for example. If I see someone put like Galaxy or 3D World at top S tier, that's pretty okay, that's pretty normal. When it comes to Mario, there's a lot of safe options that no one's gonna bat an eye to. But with Sonic, there's not a lot of safe options. The lists I've seen are a lot more varied, and some of them I would even say blasphemous. But today, I will show you people the truth. Although, side note, I haven't played every game, so the ones I haven't played I'll just briefly go over and rank it at its own haven't played tier as to how good it looks. To quickly summarize what I'm going to be ranking these games based off, I have 3 main categories. Gameplay, how good the game feels to play, the level design, mechanics, playable characters, etc. Then story, how well they tell their story and if it matches the tone of the game or whatnot. Although I'm not going to take out points for games that don't focus on the story, like Sonic 1, 2, or Mania, just because that's not what they're trying to focus on. And presentation/music, because we all appreciate some funky beats to go along with our graphics. But anyways, on with the list! Sonic the Hedgehog 1. Now, we gotta give it its legacy points, alright? It was the first Sonic games to hit shelves, and back then, you didn't really have anything like this. That said, there is some things that I'm not a fan of. First level, great, masterpiece. Green Hill Zone, we clown on it today, but everyone loves it. Music's iconic, stage lets you go fast, and it's just a good introduction all around. Then bam, Marble Garden Zone hits, and all the momentum is just now gone. It picks back up later on, but it's a hard pill to swallow. Also, the Chaos Emeralds only being used to just have some extra flowers show up at the end of the game, kind of underwhelming, especially when we see what the next game does with them. But hey, the music was solid, and it was the start to this entire franchise, so I can't be too hard on it. I'll slot it in B. And Sonic 2 is an immediate improvement. The sprites look so much better than the first one. I don't really know how controversial this is, but I've never been a big fan of the first Sonic 1 sprite. I don't know if it's just the shape or the desaturated colors or what, but I don't know. But this was an immediate improvement. Plus we got Tails, and Tails is awesome. I mean, first of all, the blue and orange go great together, and also he could literally just fly you anywhere you want. Not to mention the stages focus a lot more on going fast, and the bosses are all good. Although one thing I will say is I do not like the half pipe, especially if you have Tails following you. But hey, you get supersonic out of it, so it's not all too bad. I honestly have no idea how they got away with just turning him Super Saiyan back then. I feel like if they tried that today, they'd get sued. But regardless, Sonic 2 remains one of the best platformers of the olden era, and deserves a comfortable A tier. And Sonic CD is essentially just Sonic 1, 2. To me, the big thing with CD has always been the time travel thing, and honestly, I've never been too big on it. I've always had trouble getting enough speed to go actually time travel, and even then I kinda usually don't really see a point in time traveling if I'm being honest. Also, while I really like the look of the Super Peel Out, it's kinda just a worse spin dash practically. Search your hearts, you know it to be true. However, this game also introduces Amy and Metal Sonic, which are both iconic entries in the franchise, as well as had that amazing intro animated by Toei Animations with Sonic Boom playing in the background, so it's hard to say anything bad about CD. I'm just gonna put it in B. Not my thing, but I can see why others would like it. And I'm just gonna put Sonic 3 here, Sonic and Knuckles here, and then Sonic 3 and Knuckles here. Yeah, I'm just gonna count this all as one game, because they were always meant to be. You see, kids, back when they were making Sonic 3, they were contractually obligated to complete it by a certain time by McDonald's so they could meet an advertising quota in time. However, they weren't able to finish the whole game in time, so they decided to separate it in 2 games. Sonic 3, and then later down the road, Sonic and Knuckles. However, Sonic and Knuckles came with a lock-on feature that if you snap the Sonic 3 cartridge on top of it, you get Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You could also do this to get Knuckles in Sonic 2, but we're not talking about that. But origin story aside, this game's the real deal. First thing I want to praise is, I think the story was implemented in a nice way. I appreciate the intro cutscene that showcases Knuckles' power and how he's teamed up with Eggman, and then later on you see that he gets tricked by Eggman, so you gotta help him out. Not to mention all the in-between cutscenes showing how you get from one zone to another. It's little stuff like that gives me joy. And oh my goodness, the stages this time around, bangers. Pretty much all of them. And with the stages comes Knuckles as a playable character, who is pretty fun to use. Although I have no idea how the development team rationalized themselves that echidnas could glide through the air. Also, you can play as Tails and he actually flies this time. Yay! He even does a little doggy paddle. Look at him go. Also, Sonic gets his insta-shield, which, to be honest, I never found a use for, but hey, people like it. Also, we gotta talk about Blue Sphere. So much better than the half-pipes. You can actually comfortably get all the emeralds this time around. And might I just say, I love the idea of the secret giant rings hidden around the world. I like just being able to hop in there and finding it on my own, rather than hoping I have 50 rings by the time I reach the end of the stage. We also have Hyper Sonic and Hyper Knuckles, who has never made an appearance after this, and Super Tails with his flicky army of death. And we can't bring up Sonic 3 Knuckles without talking about Michael Jackson. Of course we can't. Now, it will always be a mystery just how much Michael Jackson was involved with the soundtrack, and how much actually was left in. But we know for certainty that he worked on some of them, and even if we can't tell which ones specifically he worked on, almost all the songs are A1, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But that is just weird to think about. Michael Jackson, of all people, worked on a Sonic soundtrack. I'd love to see Super Mario compete with that. Have fun trying to get Post Malone for Super Mario Odyssey 2. But yeah, for me, easily the best 2D Sonic game of all time. Easy S tier. Sonic Adventure. We ain't in the 2D plane anymore. We're on to 3 dimensions, people. Now, I'm gonna say that presentation-wise, it wasn't the smoothest transition.
What? Tails? Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
Some of the cutscenes were, not stellar, and the models could probably use some work. But you know, it was their first time. Let's cut them a little slack here, okay? Now, I will say, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles stages were all pretty fun. Sonic's especially. Controls were tight, and sense of speed was always there. The spin dash was a great way to gain speed, and the newly added homing attack is just perfect. And Tails' flying missions and Knuckles' treasure hunting were actually not that bad. But you know, there is Big. Now, I'm not throwing any shade at Big. I love the guy, but like, it's fishing. I can't really say Amy was all that much better, to be honest. Stealth missions are not my thing. Also, this is the first Sonic game to actually like have a very big story, and while I think it's fine for the most part, I do wonder the significance of some of the characters compared to others. Like honestly, Big himself plays no role whatsoever. He's just trying to get his frog back, and Gamma just kind of dies at the end of it, so... But I will say, I love the idea of chaos, and seeing Perfect Chaos into the game really just makes me want to see him in a Sonic movie at some point. Like, please, he would look so cool! There was also the Chow Garden here, but I never touched it. Sonic Adventure 2 one on the other hand, we'll get to that. Oh my god, the music. This was the birth of the rock and roll soundtrack the others game would continue to follow upon, and what a start. Almost all the themes for Sonic levels were great, with Red Mountain and Sky Deck being some of my favorites. And the character themes were also really great. It Doesn't Matter, Unknown From Me, come on! Do we really need to talk about Open Your Heart? The game has shown its age a little bit over the years, but it's still just so iconic. I can't give it anything lower than high A. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten to Sonic Adventure 2, aka the real deal. Now I'm going to start with the story, which I think sets the perfect tone for Sonic stories. I've seen someone made this comparison before, but it's basically just a goofy shonen anime. Sonic meets with the president, has to go into space and save the world. All the while, an evil black hedgehog is trying to stop him at every turn. Now that is epic. And you know, who am I to slander Shadow in the Year of Shadow? One of the most iconic characters of the franchise originated from here, and he makes a pretty good impression. There's also just so much quotables from this game, such as,
Faker, I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh, you're not even good enough to be
I'll
my
make you eat those words!
I'm the coolest.
and of course,
I come to make an announcement. Shadow the Hedgehog's a bitch.
also, you get to play as Eggman finally, like, hello? You know, and as for the stages and whatnot, Sonic and Shadows were all awesome. Eggman and Tails' were fun, with a nice change of pace resembling Gamma's missions in the prior game. You know, now that I think about it, does Gamma ever make another appearance at all ever again? But then we got Knuckles and Rouge stages, which are not the greatest, I'll admit. The radar only being able to track one emerald at a time is a bit weird, and playing levels could go on for a while. I will also never forgive the Ghost Boss fight. However, However, Knuckles and Rouge's stages have some of the best themes in the game, so I'll let it slide. Also, come on, we gotta talk about the Chao Garden. The amount of time people have spent here training their Chao up to be an unstoppable menace is just too much to count. Also, Tails and Eggman could just hang outside their mechs. They're just chillin'. Plus, the multiplayer moded battle was cool, and they even give you a special reward for getting all 180 emblems in the form of a playable Green Hill Zone. In short, SA2 took almost everything from SA1 and improved it in every single way, and for that, I gotta give it S. And that just leaves me so interested for what Sonic 3 is gonna do with this. Will they have the Bio-Lizard show up as the final boss? I'm still hoping Chaos makes a surprise entrance, but hey, that's just me. Although if I can ask for one thing, please recreate the photo of Sonic and Shadow with the President. That would be so cool. Sonic Heroes has a lot of things I like, and some things I kinda don't. I think the trio dynamic was handled pretty well. Being able to switch between 3 characters at once was a pretty cool gimmick, and they managed to make each character distinct yet useful in their own right. And for what they were, the stage was also pretty alright, except for the casino one. Frickin' Sonic Spinball. I also liked how the characters talk to you while doing the mission. Makes you connect more to the characters. However, there are things I kinda just don't like. Now, I get that the team didn't want to make brand new stages for each team's side story, but could they at least have put them in a different order for each story? Playing through the game and going through the same exact set of stages again and again 4 times in a row is pretty monotonous. Also, why is there only a tutorial stage in Team Roset? I know they're the easy mode, but still, what if I wanted to play as Shadow first? Also, I wasn't the biggest fan of Team Chaotix's missions. I'm a simple man. I like to start the stage and go to the goalpost. I don't feel like picking up 900 seashells. Also, where'd Mighty go? But hey, the music's baller, Mecha Overlord's pretty cool, and overall, still a solid time, so I'm gonna give it A. Alright, I hate to do this, especially in the year of Shadow, but I don't think his main game is that great. Controversial opinion, I know. I'm sorry, Shadow the Hedgehog. Please forgive me. I mean, I will say, the game is very funny. Hearing characters like Shadow and Sonic saying damn is something to behold. I'm really hoping we get one D-bomb in the movie, please, Keanu. And, there's also the guns and vehicles Shadow can use, which are something, I'll say. I mean, honestly, they're kind of a bit clunky to use, and I just prefer just homing attacking enemies instead. Pretty much a similar situation with the vehicles. Like, I'm faster than you, why do I have to use you? And I'll give the game this. It was very ambitious to have a choose-your-own-adventure storyline, but the multiple endings they ended up with are bizarre to say the least. Not to mention that most of them are just made uncanon because there's a final true story at the end. Also, unless you're just going for the pure neutral route and getting to the end of the stage, you have to complete these side objectives in order to get the good or bad ending, and they're all just annoying to get. You have to repeatedly go through the stage again and again because you keep missing one monster or one gun soldier. It just goes on and on. But hey, we get Black Doom, and he's showing up in Shadow Generation, so I can't be too mad now, can I? And can I just say how it's weird that if you think about it, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and Shadow the Hedgehog all have a continuing plotline going around about Shadow. Adventure 2 was his introduction, which he died at the end. Then in Heroes, we get the idea that he might be an android as we see a whole bunch of other Shadow androids being made. And then in Shadow the Hedgehog, we follow up on that premise, and at the very end of the game, Eggman says that he is the real Shadow the Hedgehog. I think that's pretty cool what they did with these 3 games. But regardless, Shadow the Hedgehog gets a C. Moving on to the handheld games, we got Sonic Advance. So the one thing I will say is I think the sprites in these are very good. The last time we saw these guys in 2D was Sonic 3 and Knuckles, so seeing the modern designs in sprite form is a nice treat. Other than that, it's pretty much just 2D Sonic as you know and love it, with some hiccups here and there. Throughout a lot of the levels, you'll come across a lot of bottomless pits and spikes that you would normally be able to see, but due to the zoomed-in camera, it can make it kinda hard to. And while I like the concept behind the special stages, in practice it's kinda hard to see where the rings are. But hey, for a handheld Sonic game in the 2000s, this will do. Plus we got Amy's first 2D appearance, where she plays a little bit weird, but it's something. B. And Sonic Advance 2 is pretty much more of the same. The main addition this game adds is Cream, the new character introduced in this game, and also happens to be quite overpowered. But besides that, the main difference between this and the first game is speed. Go fast enough for a long period of time and eventually you'll start getting after images following you. This makes you go blazing fast. The sense of speed this game gives you is the main thing that's great about this. But other than that, it's pretty much the same deal as Advance 1. Special stages are there and they're kind of annoying to get as well, and the music is even better than 1 actually. Overall, they're still similar enough to where I don't think they need to go in different tiers, so I'm just gonna slot this in B as well, although slightly higher. Out of all the advanced games, Sonic Advance 3 is definitely the most unique. This rendition offers 2 new additions to the series. The first being the tag team dynamic. I think the idea of being able to pair people up with others and having their unique abilities combined in a sense is very fun, although I admit some are better than others, but I still like the intent behind it. This game also gave us the hub world, which, I'm not gonna lie, not the biggest fan of. I'm fine with hub worlds, but the problem with this one is that the hub world just is kind of like one small level, and it's honestly hard to tell where the next spring is we need to go, and the less I say about the challenges and special missions, the better. Though teaming up with Eggman for the final boss fight is dope, I'll give it that. It's definitely the most ambitious out of 3, but if I'm being honest, I like it just about the same as the other 2, if not maybe a little bit more? I honestly go back and forth with this and 2, but I think I'll put it slightly above 2 for now. This could change any day of the week. Now, Sonic Rush is a lot of fun. First of all, I just want to get out of the way. Sonic Rush's OST, one of the best in the series. It's got that Jet Set Radio funk that I crave so much. In general, I'm a sucker for any song that has lyrics or anything like that in it, and this delivers. But besides the music, this is the first ever Sonic game to introduce the boost mechanic. The sense of speed you get in this game rivals that of Sonic Advance 2, which is definitely a good thing. And unlike that game, you can go that fast whenever you want. Also, being able to do tricks to get back at your speeder is pretty cool. Also, we get Blaze the Cat. Hello? One of my personal favorite Sonic characters. Also, the half-pipe was actually good in this game, which is a shocker because it's almost never good. But using the touchpad to control Sonic this time helps a lot. And speaking of hardware, using the dual screens to show both sides of the stage is very helpful. I see no reason why this does not deserve an A tier. And then we get the Sonic Rush Adventure, but they try to go for a Sonic Advance 3 thing, where they kind of expand upon Rush, adding like a somewhat hub world. You have the whole sea dynamic, which is honestly kind of lame. I'm just looking to get into the action, but I have to sail all the way to this island first. A little bit annoying, but the stages themselves are just as good as the last game, so I'm not going to be too hard on it, I'm just going to put it in B. And now, the big one, Sonic 06. Back in my day, this game was the laughing stock of the internet. The epitome of the meme, Sonic had a rough transition to 3D. Now, I just want to say there are some good things about it, some legitimately good things. I think the level design for Sonic and Shadows levels are actually pretty good, and the music is top-notch as always. And the story, well, not great. It did give us some funny moments at the very least.
Chaos Control!
And we also got Silver, who honestly, I think is one of the best additions from this game. Who doesn't love Future Trunks? Although to touch on the story more, I think at points it tried to take itself way too seriously for a Sonic game. I don't think we really need to see Sonic die at all. And Elise is not one of my favorite characters, let's just say. It's not even that I really hate her, she's just boring. But I will say, the kiss was very funny. So, oh my god, what did they do to you, Eggman? Yeah, a lot of the models and graphics and presentation are not up to 360 standards, I'd say. I mean, at this point, we'd had stuff like Kingdom Hearts 2 coming out. You're really gonna compare this to that? It also doesn't help that everyone is mocapped. It is super obvious to tell. And, you know, there's a lot of glitches as well. I'm sure we've all seen those glitch compilations online and whatnot. Not even to mention the whole Sonic's bar not working. There's also simply the fact that a lot of characters are not fun to play. I like Silver and all, but some of his stages can be rough. His little pimp slab is not enough for early game, not to mention the cue ball puzzle. But over the years, people have looked back on this game a lot more fondly than I would have imagined. Deep beneath all the problems and bugs and graphical errors, there is a good game there. It's just hard to see it. With recent projects like PO6 popping up though, people have begun to warm up on Sonic 06 again. I will admit that I have fun with this game, but I'm not gonna say it's one of the greats. It was simply just rushed out of the door, and the final product shows. If I were to count PO6, I'd probably put it in B, but if not, I'm just gonna put it in C. Although shout out to my man Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad for playing Sonic 06. He's a real one for that. Sonic and the Secret Rings is something that I like the idea of, but do not like the execution at all. The graphics and presentation, especially on the Wii for the time, was pretty good, and as someone who likes the lyrics to the music, the soundtrack was pretty bumpin', as the kids say. I even like how the story is presented through all these scrolls and pictures. It adds to the feel of the game being based on the Arabian Nights. However, this game is completely ruined by its control scheme. Tilting the Wii Remote to do everything in this game is horrid, and the fact that it's always on rails meaning you cannot stop. And while I like the idea of the level up mechanic, some things like better control should just be automatic. Although one thing I will give it is that Dark Spine Sonic is so edgy, it's beautiful. This game's going in C. Now, Sonic the Black Knight succeeded in what Secret Rings was trying to do. The most immediate improvement is actually using the nunchuck this time, meaning movement is a lot better. Additionally, Sonic has a sword now. Now, I'm not gonna say this really changes the game too much. I mean, honestly, it's mostly just the homing attack simulator again, but it does look neat. Plus, it gets the focus gauge, which is pretty cool. I also was a pretty big fan of the story this time around. I mean, if you really think about it, these storybook games were what Sonic Prime was going for. Sonic getting isekai to random dimensions with similar characters. And one thing I could also appreciate is this game gave us not one, not two, not three, but 4 Crush 40 songs. And they're all bangers. I'm actually a pretty big fan of this one, so I'm gonna slot it in A. Now this one's really weird to rank for me, because back in my day, everybody hated Unleashed. They thought the Werehog ruined the entire franchise. But now, everyone's starting to turn up on it. I think it's just because all the kids who grew up with Unleashed are starting to appreciate it. And if I'm being honest, I'm one of those people. Although, kind of. I grew up with the Wii version, and didn't try the Xbox 360 version until years later. And honestly, this game rules. The most immediate thing is that everyone's models and the whole presentation has been stepped up significantly. This game still just looks really pretty, and the day stages are some of the best in the entire series. This is the first 3D Sonic game to have Boost formula, and it works really well. Plus the whole gimmick of traversing the entire world is a very fun idea, and I think it did it very well. And while the Werehog might be a departure of what Sonic is usually about, I still think it's fun to play. I personally love me a good old-fashioned beat-em-up, and while it may not be as competent as other ones on the market, I think it's still good enough. And I love the final boss of this game, both on Wii and Xbox. Although to get there, you have to collect all these medals, which is by far the worst part of the game. It's not so bad to collect the medals as Night Sonic, but during the day when you're trying to go as fast as possible, having to slow down and explore each nook and cranny kind of goes against what the game wants you to do. Although it's all worth it, because by the end of the game we get to go to Eggman Land, baby! Ever since Isaiah 1, they've been building this place up, and it does not disappoint. I love how this stage is just a gauntlet that takes 50 minutes to complete. I think it took me like 56 minutes when I first completed it. It definitely lives up to the hype. Plus, we got endless possibilities out of this. So with everything in mind, I'm gonna place it firmly in S tier. And then there's Sonic 4. D. Okay, episode 2 is actually not that bad. Both the graphics and physics feel a lot better, and the stages are a lot more fun to go through. Still wouldn't call it amazing or anything, but it's good for a playthrough or two. I'll place it in high C. Now, Sonic Colors is a certified hood classic. For the way this game looks beautiful, and all the stages being themed around amusement park rides, it's very fun. I love me some good old-fashioned Twinkle Park. Although some of these stages were pretty short. I mean, the first stage in Everworld is pretty big, but then the later ones tend to be like 1 minute. However, this game also introduced the Wisps, which are a fun power-up. You could drill, laser, float, turn into a thwomp, and even a little gremlin. Also, we get the first playable 3D Supersonic in normal levels, which is awesome, except for the fact you can't use Wisp powers while in supersonic form, but you know, you take what you get. This was also the start of the more kid-friendly story trend. While I do like the stories of Adventure 2 and whatnot, I'm fine with this direction overall. Although I won't lie, I still do yearn to the days where Sonic can meet the President of the United States. And for those wondering, I think the DS and Ultimate ports are still very good, but I don't think it's worth really ranking them as well. But overall, I think this is a very solid entry, and I think I'd put it in A. And now it's time for the best Sonic game, Sonic Generations. This game is a love letter to all the previous Sonic games, featuring the stages from likes of Sonic 1, 2, 3, Unleashed, Adventure 2, Adventure, Colors, Heroes, even Rush is represented in the 3DS version, and they were all awesome. 3D Sonic has never felt better to control. The stages are all built around going as fast as possible, along with some tight platforming. And Classic Sonic is back, and he's also pretty awesome. They overpowered his spin dash to hell, but I'm not complaining. God, I love that part in Crisis City where you get to the goalpost and then it just flies away. This game's full of little touches like that, and I love it. Even the extra missions you can do are pretty fun. You actually get to interact with some of the characters you saved for the main game, and you could even challenge Vector to a rap battle. Not to mention you could buy all sorts of powers from the shop and whatnot if you want want to experiment a little bit. And being able to choose the music for each stage is amazing. And they got the whole catalog here. This game is a love letter to all Sonic fans, and is an overall fantastic entry in a beloved series like this. Easy S tier. I didn't even talk about the modding community. God, I'm looking forward to Sonic X Shadow Generations. You know, I liked Sonic Lost World enough at the time, but over the years, I kind of just forgot about it. I mean, for starters, the controls were a bit different. Now you have to press a button just to sprint, although I like the multi-homing attack and the parkour. Although one thing I don't really like is the whole Mario Galaxy-esque aesthetic. It's very on the nose, and I just don't think it works. Not saying there aren't any pretty scenery or stages or whatnot, but I'm just more a fan of the traditional Sonic stages. Also, the whips are back for some reason, and they're just kind of okay here. There's two new ones which are pretty neat, but they don't do anything too crazy. The Sinister Sticks were introduced into this game, and they're kinda whatever. Zavok is pretty cool, I guess. Like, the most memorable part of this game for me is the Zelda crossover. Other than that, this game really just kind of fails to stick in my mind a lot. I remember I tried to replay this game a couple of years back, but then I remembered that you had to use the gamepad, and then I dropped it immediately. I'm not gonna say this game is necessarily bad or whatnot, but it just doesn't really stand out compared to the rest of the competition, so I'm just gonna place it a B. And Sonic Mania was Sonic Generation, but 2D, which is awesome. The sprite work in this game is top notch. So many little extra animations added just for flavor, and the music by T-Lopes to accompany it is just out of this world. I said it before and I say it again. There's a reason every Sonic YouTuber uses Studiopolis Zone's music in the background. Like, oh my goodness, while there might not be a whole lot of new stages, the ones that they did add are so good. For example, Studiopolis Zone again. Even Press Garden is great. And bro, Tails can finally go super again! Although, where's his flicky army of death? And bro, Ray and Mighty coming back? We always mean though, Mighty coming back as like a joke. We never even considered bringing Ray back of all people. This game is just a love letter to the series, similar to what Generations was. And while I don't love it personally as much as Generations or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it is still top notch and does not deserve anything lower than A. And Sonic Forces was such a letdown, man. I was a fan with all the trailers showing like the destroyed world, Sonic super serious this time, and Eggman was largely in charge. But the tone of the game did not match with the story they were going for, and it was so short. Chaos got done so dirty, bro. I'll say the creative character was a nice idea. For anyone curious, I was a bear. But unfortunately, the levels they were in, as well as modern Sonic, were just so not good. Most of the time, the game just felt like it was on autopilot, you'd boost to win. And the worst part is classic Sonic is back, and he's just so much worse than he was in Generations. I don't know what's up with the physics engine or whatnot, but it does not work. And not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of the techno music this game goes for. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but it's not what I look for in Sonic soundtracks. But yeah, overall this game was a pretty big disappointment, and I'm gonna put it in C. Oh geez, we're at Sonic Frontiers already. This may or may not be my most controversial take, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Frontiers. Honestly, I'm just not the biggest fan of open worlds in games usually. Not to say I don't like them. I love stuff like Breath of the Wild and whatnot, but I also just prefer linearity sometimes. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. Like, I love how open Elden Ring is, but I never really looked for an open world thing with Sonic specifically. But with that said, I love how the map is designed with running fast in mind, with all these rails and platforms along the way, making traveling from one point to another not just a boring zip here, zip there. It's very fun to traverse the world. Unfortunately, sometimes it can be hard to tell where you need to go, especially on the volcano island. I had no idea how to get to that second part of the map. I'm pretty sure I had to look it up on my first playthrough. I will say it also does not help that the game is kind of marred by its performance just a little bit. It's not so noticeable that it ruins the game in any way, but it's still just noticeable enough. But hey, I still like a lot of things about this game. For example, the story. I personally love all the callbacks they made to previous games. Just hearing them talk about Dark Gaia and Sonic Riders just fills my heart with glee. Makes it feel like I've been validated for playing all these games. And you know, the more melancholic tone of the story is a nice change of pace. I do not necessarily mind it. However, I do mind Sonic's voice. I don't know, it's just way too deep. I get that's what they're trying to go for, the tone of the game, but I just don't think it matches Sonic at all, personally. I just don't like it. But Sage was cool. I hope she comes up in more games. As far as the music goes, with some exception in the cyberspace levels, I'm not really a biggest fan of the whole piano renditions with open world and whatnot, but the boss themes, oh my lord. Never did I think they would manage to surpass the Dreamcast era in terms of raw epicness. But they found a way. The boss fights that accompany them are so awesome too most of the time. Just picking up the Wyvern and tossing him around the earth, or taking the Knight's sword and slashing him in half. Oh, don't even get me started on Super Sonic 2. And I know this is a controversial take, but I'm actually quite a big fan of the secret final boss. But then we got Final Horizons, which, was something. I mean, being able to play as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy was nice, But dear lord, climbing up those towers was hell. They were so precise. If you fall off once, there's no safety net, so back to the beginning you go. But the real kicker is the Master Coco trial. I swear, if you fail even 2 or 3 parries, you're over. It is an insanely large difficulty spike, just out of nowhere. It took me hours just to keep enough rings to survive at the end, and the final boss that preceded it was not great. Yeah, Supersonic 2 was cool, but I had no idea how to damage Supreme. He just kept on regenerating. I knew I had to target the little tendril things, but I had no idea how to lock onto it. Eventually I looked it up, and it's just, you have to like dodge out of the way, then lock onto it, which you've never had to do before. And it doesn't tell you, it's just a mess. And I forgot to mention that there's combat in this game too, and honestly, it's pretty alright. To me, Sonic Frontiers feels like a good tech demo or proof of concept. The ideas are there, they just need to refine them in a new game. I still enjoyed my time with it, but I think it's still gonna go in the B tier. And Sonic Superstars is just kind of okay. While I do prefer the 2D sprites of Sonic Mania compared to the 3D models this game goes for, I still don't think it looks bad at all. Additionally, I think a lot of the stages are fun, like the first one as well as Cyber Station. However, the bosses are a bit annoying, and especially the final boss is, do not want to fight that guy ever again. I do like Trip though. I think she's a fun addition to the Sonic cast. And while I don't like playing as her super form, I do like how it gives her something unique, though her campaign I would say is not as fun as the other one. I don't know, I mean it's just kind of a standard 2D Sonic game to be honest. I'm not even that much of a fan of the music. Too chiptune for me. I think B's a fair spot. Maybe if it had more crossovers with IHOP, I'd be telling a whole different story right now. And there we have it. Every Sonic game I played, ranked. Now, with any list of this variety, I'm sure you guys have your own opinions on what's S and what's D. And I would love to hear what you guys think, because it seems like everyone's Sonic list is different in their own way, which is a good thing. Variety is the spice of life after all. Well, just let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, see ya! Also, can we just talk about that Summer Games Fest trailer real quick? Because, oh my god, Shadow Generation looks so cool!